Ulimma slowly opened her eyes. The room was dark, with only a small light coming from a crack in one corner. She felt weak. She turned her head towards the window. It was locked, but she was sure it was certainly morning outside. And then suddenly the door creaked open. A man stepped inside. The moment Ulimma saw his face, anger rushed through her veins. "So, it is you," she said bitterly. "Where is my mother? What did you do to her, you evil man?" Ezebilo laughed, his voice cold. "You are better off without her, Ulimma. You are now a woman. What will you be doing with a mad woman? Who will marry you knowing that your mother is mad?" "I don't care," Ulimma snapped. "She is my mother, and nothing, not even you, can ever change that." "But I care," Ezebilo said sharply. "I am your father, so you are not my father." Ulimma cut in, her voice burning with rage. "You have never been, and you will never, ever be my father. You said so yourself." Ezebilo's tone softened suddenly. "Oh, my Ulimma, whatever they told you is a lie. Your mother is not who you think she is. She was unfaithful to me. When you were born, I wanted to take you and take care of you, but she was already struck with madness. She refused to let anyone come near you. That is why I had to leave." Ulimma let out a short, bitter laugh. "You miserable liar. No matter what you say, I will never see you as my father. In fact, I would rather die than be the daughter of a man like you." Ezebilo's face became hard. "You ungrateful child. I was trying to give you a better life, but you don't deserve it. And for your information, your mother is gone and you will never see her again." Ulimma screamed in pain and anger, but Ezebilo had already walked out and the heavy door slammed shut. The sound of a key turned in its lock. She was trapped alone in the dim room with no idea of what he was planning to do with her. 2 days had passed. The villagers began to notice something strange. Mawai and Ulimma had not been seen in the village square as usual. The last time anyone saw Ulimma, she was crying and searching for her mother. Worried whispers filled the air. People were sent to check their small compound, hoping to find out what had really happened. But when they arrived, the place was silent and deserted. And then they found Mawai's old mother lying lifeless in one corner of her hut. From the smell and the state of her body, it was clear she had been dead for at least 2 days. Her skin had started to change, and flies hovered over her. The villagers quickly dug a grave and buried her with respect. But something about the whole situation did not feel right. Their first thought was that Ulimma had left to look for her missing mother, and so strong young men were chosen and sent into the bushes and far paths to search for them. They searched from morning till night for days, but there was no sign of either of them. It was as if they had both vanished into thin air. The village grew silent and tense. Everyone knew deep down that something bad had happened, but no one understood how 2 people could disappear without a single trace. Meanwhile, Ulimma was still locked away in the dim prison Ezebilo had thrown her into. She had no idea what was happening outside, but she refused to eat or drink. Her only food was her tears. She cried for her mother. She worried about her weak grandmother, not knowing the woman had already been buried. She also wondered what would become of her. Ulimma had always known who Ezebilo was. She had heard many ugly stories about him and her mother since she was a child. She sometimes saw him from a distance in the village, but she had never given him much thought until now. And now, she realized just how much she hated him. She was certain that he was as heartless and cruel as all the stories had said him to be. Day after day, she prayed for a way to escape, but no matter how much she hoped, there seemed to be no hope for freedom. A few mornings later, Ezebilo came again. This time, he hoped that Ulimma would listen to him and do what he wanted. But Ulimma had made her own plans too. Determined to get out of that place no matter what, she too decided to stay calm and talk to him politely, beg if she had to. As soon as he came in, she went on her knees, tears filling her eyes. "Please, let me go," she begged. "If not for anything, do it for my sick grandmother. She needs me. There is no one to care for her." Ezebilo looked at her without feeling. Then he said very nonchalantly, "I don't know why you bother yourself with things that will add no value to your life. Well, if you must know, your grandmother is dead and the villagers have already buried her." The words hit Ulimma like a heavy stone. She felt her chest tighten. Anger rose inside her like fire. She flared up. "You are wicked. You are heartless," she shouted. "You will suffer for what you have done to my family, Ezebilo. You will suffer so much that you will beg for death, but death will refuse to take you." Her eyes were wild, and she moved as if she would jump on him and tear him apart. Ezebilo, quickly saying this, stepped back, ran out of the hut and locked the door behind him. Once in his hut, he stood breathing hard. Things were not going the way he had planned. He had hoped to make Ulimma see reasons with him and come to accept him as her father. But now she hated him even more. He began to regret what he had done. He regretted the rash decision he had taken. But it was too late. To make matters worse, he couldn't just let her go. If she returned to the village, she would tell everyone the truth, and he would be in serious trouble. He could even be killed for it, especially because he knew there was no way to bring a person back from the dead. Yes, he had already ordered his men to get rid of Mawai. To him, of what use was a mad woman to the village? He thought about killing Ulimma too, but he stopped himself. She was his own daughter, his flesh and blood. He could not do that. He had already done enough evil to last a lifetime, and taking her life would only make his already miserable life more miserable. After long hours of restlessness and thinking, Ezebilo finally decided what to do. He would take Ulimma far away from Umobom, so far that she would never find her way back. That way, no one in the village would suspect him of anything. That same night, to Ulimma's surprise, Ezebilo came in again. This time with what seemed like good news. "You are free to go," he said. Ulimma stared at him, her eyes full of suspicion. I don't understand. You want me to get up and go, just like that? Isabella smiled and nodded. Yes, you are free to go. I've realized my mistake, and I'm sorry for the things I put you and your family through. You wanted freedom? Here it is. You may leave. She did not believe him. Isabella was a snake. She knew he could not be trusted. Still, freedom was freedom. If there was even a small chance to escape, she would take it. She stood up quickly and walked out. It was night already and the whole village was quiet. The moonlight fell softly on the empty paths. Not one soul was in sight. Not knowing exactly where to go or what to do, Ulimma decided to head home. At least she could sleep there for the night and then think of what to do next. She turned onto the narrow path that led to her grandfather's compound. Suddenly, she heard light footsteps behind her. She stopped, her heart pounding fast. Fear gripped her. She listened carefully. Yes, someone was following her. She turned to see who it was, but before she could, something hard slammed into her head and everything went black again. When she woke up, the first light of dawn was just breaking. A sharp pain shot through her head. She slowly sat up and looked around. She was lying on the cold ground, deep in the bush. Then she heard voices. Turning her head, she saw two men standing a short distance away. Their backs were to her, but she knew without a doubt these were the same men who had broken into her home and taken her. The same men who had dragged her away from her mother. The same men who had possibly killed Mawai. Her chest tightened with both fear and anger. She knew immediately that it was Isabella's doing. Her suspicions were right. He never intended for her to go free. This was all a trick. Then she heard the men arguing. "We should stick to the plan," one of them said. The other shook his head. "I will not do more than this today. I don't trust that man. Besides, I'm tired. If it was so easy, he should have done it himself." She did not understand what they were talking about or what they were saying, but she knew it was definitely about her, and whatever they had planned did not sound good at all. She quickly looked around for a way of escape. All she could see were bushes and tall trees. If she tried to run, they would catch her easily. And then she looked up. Above her was a mango tree. Her heart leapt. This could be her only chance. She had been climbing trees for a living since she was little, and so without wasting time, she quietly grabbed the trunk and climbed fast, hiding herself deep inside the thick leaves, praying to the gods to protect her. By the time the men came back to get her, she was gone. Their eyes widened in shock. "She was here just now," one said. "Oh, I told you we should have tied her legs. Now what do we do?" the other complained. They searched everywhere around them, except up. They did not think to look in that tree. "Since we are facing that way, she must have gone the other way," the first man said. "If we leave now, we can still catch her. She couldn't have gone far." And with that, they hurried off in the opposite direction. Ulimma waited for a while. Then she quietly climbed down from the tree. She had no idea where she was, but she knew she had to get away from there immediately. She ran in the opposite direction, from the path the men had followed, pushing through bushes and sharp grasses. She ran until her legs shook. Then she walked, then ran again. Hours passed before she saw houses ahead, a small village. But she did not feel safe yet. She wanted to go as far as possible, and so she kept moving, her heart still beating fast. Ulimma walked for miles. She journeyed for days, her bare feet bruised and covered with dust. She only stopped when her legs trembled too much, resting under trees or by the roadside. And when hunger struck, she begged for scraps from strangers. And when there was no one to beg from, she bent by the clear streams she passed and drank water. She walked from village to village, always glancing over her shoulders. In her mind, Ezebilu's men were everywhere. She told herself she would not stop until she was gone far away, that even the wind from Umobom could not reach her. But the body is not made of stone. After many days of walking, her strength began to fade. Her legs felt like logs. Her shoulders ached, and her eyes stung from lack of sleep. At last, she came to a particular village. She did not know where she was or how far she had come. She only knew that she could not take one more step. The name of that place was Achina, a land far, far away from Umobom. By the time she entered Achina, night had fallen. The air smelt of burning firewood and roasted yams. Crickets chirped loudly, and the moon hung lazily over the rooftops. She knew no one. She had no home to go to. She could not wander about in the darkness, and so she went into the first compound her eyes fell on. It was a large compound with a wide barn in the corner, its wooden doors slightly open. The smell of stored yams and dried maize drifted out, and with the quietness of a cat, Ulimma slipped inside. Her stomach growled painfully. She had not eaten proper food in over a week, but her body was too tired to think of food. The moment she sank down on the cool earthen floor of the barn, her head dropped and her world went blank. When she opened her eyes again, it was morning. Shapes moved above her. Men, women, and children stood in a circle, peering down at her as though she were a strange bird that had fallen from the sky. She tried to sit up, but her arms were too weak. An elderly woman stepped forward and asked gently, "Who are you, my child?" Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her head felt heavy, her vision blurred, and before she could make sense of anything, her mind became fuzzy again. The faces around her swirled, and she slipped back into darkness. Seeing how weak the stranger looked, the women exchanged glances and wasted no time. One of the men lifted Ulimma carefully and carried her into one of the huts in the compound. There, the women washed the dust from her skin, changed her into clean clothes, and laid her on a raffia mat to rest. A messenger was sent to fetch the village healer, a bent old man with bright eyes, who came carrying a small calabash of herbs. He examined her, touched her forehead, and began his work, murmuring prayers to the gods as he gave her bitter medicines. For 3 days, Ulimma lay between life and death. Then on the morning of the 4th day, she stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and she found herself in a strange room with a faint smell of herbs in the air. Beside her sat a young maiden about her age, watching her quietly. When Ulimma's eyes met hers, The girl's face lit up. She jumped to her feet and dashed out of the hut, shouting, "Mama! Mama! The strange maiden is awake!" Moments later, a broad-hipped woman with a warm smile burst into the room. She gasped in relief and lifted her hands, giving thanks to the gods. She hurried out again and returned, holding a steaming plate of food, pounded yam with thick, fragrant soup. The moment the plate touched the floor beside her, Ulimma grabbed it with shaky hands and began to eat, stuffing the food into her mouth as if afraid it might vanish. The woman and the girl exchanged glances, their eyes soft with pity. Whatever storm had thrown this maiden into their compound, they knew it must have been a fierce one. That was how Ulimma's life in Chief Okonkwo's household started. When she finally regained enough strength to speak, she told them everything. Well, almost everything. She left out the parts that could put her in danger. But she painted a picture of her suffering, her loss, and how she had been running for days with no idea where her legs were carrying her. Her voice broke several times and tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke. "I have nowhere to go," she said, her voice trembling. "Please, let me stay here. I will work for you. I don't want money. I just need a roof over my head and food to eat. I will serve you well. I promise." Chief Okonkwo was a wealthy man with a big household. He owned vast acres of lands, which yielded bountifully. And as a traditional titled man, he had 7 wives and 24 children. However, they all lived peacefully as one big happy family. He was a large man with a kind but commanding face. After hearing Ulimma's story, he sat quietly for a long moment. He was not one to take in strangers easily, but there was something about the way Ulimma's eyes glistened with desperation, something about her voice that carried both pain and dignity, that stirred something deep inside him. His gaze slowly shifted to his eldest wife, Ugoli, who was standing behind him with her arms folded. Ugoli was known in the village as a woman with a sharp tongue, but also a heart so soft as newly pounded yam. And Chief Okonkwo never made a serious decision without hearing from her. She looked at Ulimma for a long moment, then gave her husband a slow nod. That nod was all Chief Okonkwo needed. He cleared his throat and said in his deep voice, "You will stay. From today, this compound is your home. You will work here, but not for free, and you will never lack food or shelter." Ulimma's knees buckled as relief washed over her. She knelt quickly, her forehead touching the ground. "Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mama. I will forever be indebted to you," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. And so, with nothing but her broken heart and the scars of her journey, Ulimma entered a new chapter of life, one she hoped would be far away from Umobom. And that was how her new life began. It did not take long for her to settle in. The compound was large and lively, always filled with the smell of food cooking over open fires, the sound of laughter from the children, and the steady rhythm of pesos pounding yam in the mortar. Chief Okonkwo had a daughter about Ulimma's age, Ogadimma, whom everyone fondly called Ogadi. She had been the one sitting beside Ulimma's mat when she woke up. They became friends almost instantly. Ogadi, being the youngest of Okonkwo's children, was thrilled to finally have someone her age to talk to and share secrets with. She quickly decided that Ulimma would not just be a friend, she would be a sister. She begged her father to let Ulimma stay in her own hut, and Chief Okonkwo agreed. Soon, the two girls were sharing the same hut and the same bed. Since Ulimma arrived with nothing, Ogadi opened her small wooden box and pulled out some of her fine wrappers and beaded necklaces. "Take them," she said, grinning. "What is mine is now yours." Her excitement was almost childlike, as if she had found a rare treasure in Ulimma. This kind of kindness was strange to Ulimma. All her life, people had laughed at her, mocked her, or turned away from her pain. To have someone offer her love and acceptance without asking for anything in return was new and a little frightening. But her heart, which had known so much sorrow, began to soften. She welcomed Ogadi's friendship with open arms. At least for the first time, she felt what it meant to have a sister. Her days quickly fell into a simple rhythm. At dawn, she joined the other household maids to fetch water from the stream, and then helped the women in the kitchen to slice vegetables and stir steaming pots, after which she was expected to carry food down to the farm workers. She worked diligently, without ever complaining or being slothful. And in the evenings, Ogadi would take her by the hand and drag her to the village square. There, the air would be alive with the beat of drums, the clapping of hands, and the high-pitched laughter of children. The smell of roasted maize and palm wine lingered in the air. Women danced in colorful wrappers, while the others laughed and cheered. Ulimma often stood still, her eyes growing glassy. Every time she saw the dancing women, she thought of her mother. She could almost see Mawai among them, with her scattered hair and thousands of beads which she loved to wear. Her laughter spilling into the night as the children sang and clapped for her. Each time, her heart broke over and over again. On some nights, she would cry silently and wipe her eyes before Ogadi could notice. But Ogadi noticed everything. One night, as they lay in their hut, Ogadi turned to her. "Ulimma, why do you always look so sad in the village square? And on many nights, I've heard you cry. I've seen you wipe your tears. Tell me, what bothers you so much?" At first, Ulimma was silent, but Ogadi's voice was gentle, and her eyes held no judgment. And so, slowly, she told her about her mother. "My mother went mad on the day she bore me. My father said she was cursed by the gods. He said I was not his child, and then he abandoned us. My mother got worse, but she never let anyone touch me or even come close to me, even though she had lost her mind, and would always dance in the village square. She loved me so much." Ulimma wiped her tears and continued. "I loved her too, and took care of her the best way I could. Then one day she disappeared, just like that. The man who was supposed to be my father, the man who denied and abandoned us, had people kill my mother because he wanted me. He was desperate to have a child." She looked at Ogadi, the tears now flowing freely. You know the rest of the story. Ogadi's eyes glistened. She reached for Ulimma's hand and squeezed it. I'm sorry you went through all that. I cannot imagine how painful all this was for you. But you must know, your mother is still with you, even if you can't see her. She walks beside you every day, and I know that she would want you to be happy. So don't worry. The gods do not sleep. That evil man, he will pay for everything he has done to you and your family very, very soon. Those words wrapped around Ulimma's heart like a warm blanket. She thanked Ogadi and silently thanked the gods for making their paths cross. From that night, she told herself that she would keep pushing forward no matter what the past had taken from her. Ulimma and Ogadi's bond became so tight that if you did not know, you would think they were blood sisters. Everyone in their community already knew how Ulimma suddenly showed up in Chief Okongwo's compound. But that did not stop Ogadi from telling anyone who cared to listen that Ulimma was her sister. As for Ulimma, she had the same spirit her mother Mama possessed. She was just as beautiful as her mother, both inside and outside, and it was so easy to love her. It did not take long. The good people of Achina also came to accept her as one of their own. Then, one evening, Ulimma was unable to go to the village square with Ogadi because she was not feeling too well. That evening, the air in Chief Okongwo's compound was quiet, except for the distant sounds of drums coming from the village square. Ulimma lay on the bed, staring at the raffia ceiling, her mind far away. Her body felt heavy, and the dull headache had kept her indoors. She was still lost in thought when the door burst open and Ogadi ran in, her wrapper almost coming loose from the speed of her steps. Uli, guess what? The time has come again, she squealed, her eyes sparkling like the moonlight. Ulimma turned her head slowly. Okay, calm down, Ogadi. What time has come again? Ogadi bounced from one foot to the other like a child who could no longer keep a secret. Then she flung herself onto the bed beside Ulimma, grabbing her arm. Last year, she began breathlessly, the prince was supposed to take a wife. As our custom demands, all the maidens of the land, those who are of age, must come to the square looking their most beautiful. We dance before the prince and the whole village so he can choose his bride. It's always a grand occasion, Uli. Drums, songs, feasting. But last year, we danced until our feet ached. Yet, the prince did not choose anyone. He said his heart had not settled on any maiden. Uli, we were so disappointed. Her voice dropped, then rose again with excitement. But this year, the chance has come again. Today at the square, the king's messenger announced it. The dance has been fixed for the next moon. Uli, my heart is already dancing. Ulimma laughed softly. So, technically, all the maidens of marriageable age will compete for the prince's attention. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why can't he just find a maiden he loves like other men do and then get married? Ogadi shrugged. I don't know. Since I was born, and even since the days of our forefathers, it has always been so. It's our tradition. Ulimma smiled. Then I must prepare you for this dance. You will learn new moves that will set you apart from every other maiden, and luckily for you, I'm a very good dancer. You must look your best and dance your best. Tomorrow, we start practice. Ogadi's face fell into a frown. Wait, you are not joining the dance? Ulimma shook her head. Why would I? I am not from Achina. And besides, my sister is competing too. It makes no sense for the both of us to be there. And even if it does make sense, I have no interest in dancing for the prince's attention. Come on, Uli, Ogadi pleaded. You are part of us now. Everyone loves you. And imagine, if my sister and I both dance, and the prince does not notice me, he might notice you. Then I would become the queen's sister. Can't you picture it? Ulimma chuckled gently. I cannot picture anything, Ogadi. I am not interested in this dance. But I see how much it means to you, and I will do everything I can to help you. Do you hear me? Ogadi nodded, still bubbling with excitement. She could already see herself dancing before the prince. True to her word, Ulimma began preparing her sister the very next day. She taught her graceful steps and spins, many of which she had learned from her mother. They went through the market and picked out the finest wrappers and the brightest coral beads. Ogadi would shine like the morning sun. But they were not alone in their preparations though. Across Achina, every maiden was busy. The sound of laughter and singing drifted from courtyards. Mothers and aunties braided hair, polished beads, tightened wrappers. The village paused like a marketplace, every girl determined to outshine the other. The day finally came. The king's open courtyard was a sea of color. Red, gold, blue, green, fabrics fluttered in the warm breeze, palm fronds swayed gently overhead, and the air was thick with the smell of food and spicy meat from nearby stalls. Villagers from every corner of Achina had gathered, their faces bright with anticipation. They could not wait to see what the maidens had in store for them. Hand in hand, Ulimma and Ogadi stepped into the courtyard. Ogadi was a vision, wrapped in a red wrapper, speckled with gold. Coral beads hugging her waist and glistening on her neck. Her hair was gathered into an elegant style, each strand lying perfectly in place. She seemed to glow from head to toe, and Ulimma smiled proudly, knowing she had helped create that glow. The whole place buzzed with chatter, laughter, and occasional sharp beat of a drum as the musicians tested their instruments. When the moment came, the drums began in earnest, deep, steady, and commanding. The village dancers opened the floor, moving with such skill that the crowd clapped and whistled. And then, finally, it was time for the maidens to present themselves. One after the other, they danced, their hips swaying, feet stamping, beats jiggling. Each maiden tried to dance more than the last. When Ogadi's turn came, she strode confidently into the center. The drums rolled. She moved like flowing water, smooth and graceful, full of fire. Her waist swayed in ways that no one in Achina had seen before. The crowd roared. Some maidens seated nearby could not hide their wide-eyed stares. And then by the side of the dancers, Ulimma was cheering as if Ogadi had already won. She clapped her hand, called her name again and again in a loud voice, jumping up and down in excitement. Seeing her sister's joy made Ogadi's step even lighter as she danced harder, spinning sharper. The prince from where he was seated watched the whole show, bored beyond human comprehension. He wanted to be anywhere else but there. He knew this was what was expected of him, but still he wished there were other ways to go about finding a bride. But when Ogade came up and started dancing, he sat up. Finally, someone who had something different to show. His interest piqued immediately. But then he heard a voice from beside where the other maidens were seated. He looked and saw her. She was jumping excitedly, cheering on the one who was dancing. For a second, everything seemed to slow down. Everything blurred, and all he could see was the maiden he had never seen before. She looked so beautiful and happy. Her laughter did things he could not understand to his insides. She did not seem to be participating like the other maidens. But the joy in her as she cheered the other maiden, Ogade, was so pure. He knew then that he had found what he had been looking for. His heart told him that this was it. Prince Nnanna waited patiently for the last maiden to dance. All the while, his whole attention was focused on the maiden whose name he did not know yet. Finally, the dance ended, and it was time to make his decision. Prince Nnanna rose from his throne and thanked them all for their beauty and their skill. Then he declared, "Among you, I have found my bride." Huh? The courtyard erupted in shouts and ululations. The maidens quickly started to arrange themselves. Some were smiling nervously, others were trying hard to steady their shaking hands. Every one of them hoped that she would be the chosen one. All eyes were on the prince. To their surprise, he walked past all of them and stopped directly in front of where Ulimma was standing. "What is your name, beautiful one?" Ulimma was surprised. She looked left and right just to be sure that it was she he was actually talking to. But his gaze remained fixed on her. "My name is Ulimma," she stammered, still in a state of shock. The prince took her hands and led her to the center of the courtyard. Everywhere went silent. Ulimma at that point realized what was going on. She turned towards the prince. "My prince, please, what is going on? I'm not a part of this." The prince smiled at her. "I know. But the moment I looked and saw you, I knew that I had found who I was looking for." Ulimma looked into his eyes and she could not explain it. But something stirred deep inside her. Her heart seemed to beat faster. She looked around her to see the villagers watching in silence. Then without another word, she removed her hands from his, turned and ran. She did not stop running until she entered the hut she shared with Ogade and threw herself on the bed, breathing heavily. A few minutes later, Ogade too ran in panting. "Ah, you run too fast, Uli. I tried so hard to catch up with you. The whole village is talking. Everyone is in shock. Why did you run?" Ulimma looked at Ogade. "I'm sorry, Ogade. I did not mean for this to happen this way. It was truly not my intention." Ogade was taken aback. "What are you saying? There's nothing to be worried about, Uli. We were all there and saw what happened. You managed to catch the prince's eyes even without trying. Is that not unbelievable?" She smiled brightly. "See, I told you that if I did not get the prince's attention, then you will. And it happened exactly like that. Now, I, Ogade, will become the only sister to the Queen Ulimma of Achina," she said boastfully. I will not marry him, Ulimma said abruptly. Ogade frowned. Why? This is what we have all prayed for. All the maidens in this village. We have worked so hard for it even. And you have it on a platter of gold. And you don't want it. Ulimma held Ogade's hand. Ogade, you don't understand. I just feel like this is wrong. You were so excited about this and I really wanted it for you. I feel like I don't deserve it. Ogade smiled. You are just being stubborn, Uli. But don't worry, I know just the right person to talk some senses into you. With that, Ogade left her alone with her thoughts. Meanwhile, the village was literally on fire. Tongues were wagging. Everyone had Ulimma's name on their lips. They could still not understand how the prince disregarded all the maidens who had worked so hard to gain his attention for the second time in a row, only to settle for a nobody, a stranger. And now that stranger would become their future queen, just like that. They all walked home in groups, discussing the matter. The situation was no different in the palace. The king was not pleased. Nana, are you sure this is what you want? Based on my findings, that maiden is not from Achina. She is a stranger who showed up in Chief Okonkwo's compound. Prince Nana's face was set. Your Majesty, based on my own findings, she has lived here among us for more than 6 months as a member of the respected household of Chief Okonkwo, and not one person has had anything bad to say about her. How come suddenly I choose her as my bride and everyone thinks she is a stranger? The king sighed. My son, you have a point. But still, she was not a part of the contest. We cannot ignore that fact. It's tradition. Prince Nana looked at his father long and hard. Father, tradition was created by our fathers to create orderliness. For 2 years, Father, no maiden has captured my attention. And then I see this maiden for the first time, and my heart tells me that she is the one. She was not competing, yet I still found her. This only means that the gods wanted me to find her. The king took a deep breath. He knew that his son was right. If that is what you want, then so be it. The gods be with you. That was all Prince Unana needed to hear. As he left the king's chambers, he started putting his plan in place. First thing tomorrow morning, he was going to pay his intended bride a visit. Back in Chief Okonkwo's compound, night had fallen, and Ulimma was still holed up in the room, still trying to wrap her head around the events of that day when the door opened and Ogoli, Chief's eldest wife, who everyone called Mama, walked into the room. Ulimma sat up immediately. Good evening, Mama, she greeted slightly, bowing her head in respect. Sit down, Uli, Mama said calmly. Uli sat back down on the bed. Mama took a deep breath. Okade tells me that you said you will not marry the prince. Is that true? Yes, Mama, Ulimma responded, nodding. It does not feel right for me to do so. I am a nobody here in Achina. I have never had such dreams or thoughts in my life before. How do I suddenly wake up to this? Okade has always wanted this. I saw the excitement on her face as she prepared for this. I feel like This means taking her dreams away from her. Mama smiled warmly. Ogadi has always dreamed about becoming the queen of Achina, but so have all the other maidens also dreamed. It is always a thing in Achina. It is always like this. You were chosen without even competing. Consider yourself favored by the gods. This may be why the gods brought you here in the first place. Nothing happens without a reason. So sit up, my child, and embrace your destiny. Ulimma looked up at the elderly woman. Thank you, Mama. You have been so good to me. How do I ever repay you? There's nothing to repay, my child. From the day I laid my eyes upon you in the barn, I knew that there was something special about you. I knew that the gods have brought you here for a reason. And maybe this is it. After Mama left, Ulimma sat down and thought about the whole situation some more. It still felt so unreal. But then she thought, maybe this was truly her destiny. The next morning, Ulimma was walking back from the farm after taking food to the workers when she saw Ogadi running towards her. Ogadi's face was glowing with excitement. Uli, Uli, she called breathlessly, grabbing her by the hand. What is it? Ulimma asked, startled by the urgency in her voice. The prince is here, Ulimma, Ogadi announced, her voice almost trembling with joy. He came with his entourage. They are waiting for you in father's ubi. Ulimma stopped in her tracks. Her heart skipped a beat. Really? But I'm not ready yet, she said, quickly glancing down at her simple work clothes. Ogadi laughed and squeezed her hand. No one is ever totally ready. Come, you cannot keep a prince waiting. Before Ulimma could protest further, Ogadi was already pulling her along, urging her to move faster. The two girls ran all the way home, giggling and panting, their bare feet pounding on the dusty path. They slipped through the back entrance of the compound so that no one would see them in such a hurry. Once inside their hut, Ogadi dropped to her knees and pulled open her wooden trunk. She dug deep inside and brought out one of her finest wrappers, a beautiful piece of cloth with bright bold patterns and a string of coral beads. Wear this. It was given to me by my grandmother. You need to look dazzling, Ogadi said, her eyes twinkling. Today is a day you will never forget. Ulimma's fingers trembled as she tied the wrapper around her waist and slipped the beads over her neck. As she looked at herself, she wondered how life had changed so quickly, from the lonely girl she once was to this moment where a prince was waiting for her, and better still, how she had gotten so lucky to meet a person as wonderful as Ogadi. With Ogadi at her side, Ulimma walked into Chief Okonkwo's ubi. The sound of voices and laughter drifted towards them. Inside, the chief sat proudly, entertaining the prince and his men. When Ulimma entered, she bowed low to greet the prince, her heart racing, then went on her knees before Chief Okonkwo. Ulimma, Chief Okonkwo said warmly, the prince has formally come to ask for your hand. Do you accept his proposal? Ulimma lifted her eyes to him, her face glowing with a shy smile, and then she nodded. They all laughed heartily. Then may the gods bless this union, Chief Okonkwo prayed, placing his hands on her head. He spoke words of blessings, and with his own hands, he placed hers into the prince's. That day marks the beginning of a new chapter in both Ulimma's life and the prince. Prince Inanna was in no hurry to make Ulimma his bride. He wanted to know her, to know everything there was to know about her, including where she came from. And so every evening, after the day's duties in the palace, he would quietly make his way to Chief Okonkwo's compound. And there, under the white shade of the big Odala tree, they would sit together and talk for long hours. Ulimma, knowing the seriousness of this new chapter of her life, told the prince every single detail of her life, starting from the unfortunate circumstances surrounding her birth to how her supposed father had taken her mother away from her. "He killed my mother," she said, and boldly said it to my face. "My grandmother died because there was no one to care for her after he sent his men to abduct me. And he felt no single remorse." Ulimma's voice broke. I refused to bend to him and be the child he so suddenly desperately wanted. And so he planned with his men to get rid of me. It was by the help of the gods that I narrowly escaped. I ran until I reached here. And then I stopped running because I was tired. I could run no more." She looked up at him. "That's how I came to Achina, all the way from Umobom." The prince's heart was moved. Her story did not change the way he felt about her. If anything, it deepened it. He was now certain that it was the gods who had guided his steps to her. He admired her courage, her ability to smile even after all that she had been through. And with each passing day, he loved her even more. Sometimes, instead of just sitting there under the tree, they would walk through the village, talking and laughing. And then, one cool evening, as they strolled down the dusty path, they heard loud shouting coming from the village square. "Catch her!" a woman's voice rang out. "Thief! Stop her!" another one's voice cried. Curious, they walked towards the noise. There in the open square, a group of women were chasing someone. The person they were after clutched a big piece of roasted yam in her hands. Her clothes were torn, her hair tangled like a bird's nest. She ran wildly, eyes darting around in confusion. As she drew closer, Ulimma's steps slowed. Her heart began to race. She stared hard at the woman. Something about her face felt familiar. Then her eyes widened. She stopped where she was, frozen in place. It was her. It was Mawai, her mother. The woman she had thought dead and mourned for the past 6 months. "Mother!" Ulimma's voice broke as words escaped her lips. Mawai stopped running at once. Her body stilled. Slowly, she raised her head. Her eyes met Ulimma's. And in that instant, it was as if a heavy veil lifted from her mind. She shook her head as if trying to clear her thoughts. Her wild expressions softened. "Ulimma," she whispered, taking slow steps forward. Everything around them seemed to pause. The shouting, the running, even the air felt still. The prince stood rooted to the spot, watching. Ulimma ran into her mother's arms without caring about the dirt, the smell, or the stares. Tears streamed down her face. "Mother," You're alive. I thought I would never see you again. Mawanye's hands trembled as she touched her daughter's face, her fingers tracing every feature like she was trying to memorize it. Then she looked down at herself, at her clothes, her bare feet. What happened to me? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. Where have you been? Ulimma could no longer hold back her tears. You are fine now, mother. You are fine, she said, clutching her mother tightly. She realized that seeing her again must have sparked something in her mother's mind. Truly, seeing her daughter again did reset the part that was lost on the day Ulimma was born. Still trying to understand what had just happened, the prince gently guided both mother and daughter back to Chief Okonkwo's compound. Behind them, the women who had been chasing Mawanye no longer cared about the roasted yam which now lay forgotten on the ground. They had a bigger matter to talk about. Their future queen was born by a mad woman. Meanwhile, Ulimma walked through the village holding her mother's hand tightly. People they passed stopped and looked at them. Some whispered to each other, others shook their heads in disgust. But Ulimma paid them no mind. What worried her most was not their stares. It was what would happen when they reached Chief Okonkwo's compound. She wondered how Chief Okonkwo and Mama would react to seeing her mother. When they finally arrived, Ulimma's heart was beating fast. But to her relief, both Chief Okonkwo and Mama welcomed them warmly. They shared in her joy even, smiling and giving thanks to the gods for bringing mother and daughter back together. When they heard the real story behind Mawanye's madness, their hearts were touched with pity. Sadly, Mawanye herself could not remember how she had been taken from her home. The only thing she could recall was opening her eyes and finding herself in a strange village. And since that day, she had wandered from village to village in search of her Ulimma. Mama's eyes grew wet as she listened to Mawanye's story. Without a second thought, she took Mawanye's hand and told her that she was welcome to stay as a part of their family. And just like that, Mawanye too became a member of Chief Okonkwo's household. It took only seconds for different versions of stories to start flying around Achina. However, all the stories had one conclusion. The prince's chosen bride was born of a mad woman. Even before the prince returned to the palace later that night, the news had reached the palace, and both the king and queen were anxiously waiting for his return. You cannot marry that maiden, the queen said as soon as Prince Nana entered the palace. Good evening, father. Good evening, mother. He bowed, greeting them respectfully. Nana, the king cut in, ignoring his greeting. You must listen to the voice of reason. You cannot marry a woman born of a mad woman. It will taint the crown and its offspring. Mother, father, you should not be listening to village gossip, Prince Nana said. Ulimma was not born of a mad woman. Situation made it so. Her mother labored for over 12 hours. 12 hours of pain, only for her father to reject her and the child and accuse her of infidelity because she had a girl when he wanted a boy. Something snapped in her head, and she never remained the same again until today. He looked at both parents. Those women have been through a lot and survived against all odds. Think of it this way. Ulimma ran for her life and found herself here in Achina. And by some miracle, her mother, who she had thought dead, also finds her way here. This is to show that the gods had this all planned out. The queen was still worried. This is touching, but it is too complicated for the throne. Nana, what will the people say? The people will come to accept it, the king interrupted. Nana looked up surprised at his father's response. The king smiled. Yes, my son. Do as the gods lead you. The way of the gods are unpredictable, and like you said, I don't believe that this is mere coincidence. The gods had it all planned out. And just like that, it was sealed. Disregarding the wagging tongues of the villagers, especially those that think that the prince was bringing a curse upon himself, Prince Inanna went ahead to marry his chosen bride, with Chief Okonkwo standing in as her father. It was a glorious day in Achina. The drums rolled, people came from far and wide. There was dancing and enough food to eat and drinks to make merry. Ulimma dazzled in her ivory beaded wrapper, unable to contain her joy. The universe had made all her pain, most of it at least, go away. She had her mother back in good health and most importantly, in sound mind. She got herself in Ogadi, a sister she would love and cherish forever. The same Ogadi who was now happily dancing around and telling anyone who cared to listen that the queen-to-be was her own sister. As for Umawai, her joy could not be explained. She was now older, but still beautiful. Mama had made sure that she got all the care and rest that she needed. And now she stood watching her daughter, tears filling her eyes. She was happy that she had found her Ulimma, and added to that, her daughter, who had been seen as a nobody, was about to become the most important woman in Achina, a land they had never known. As for Ezebilo, we did not forget about him. His end was as miserable as you can imagine. The people of Umobom still had no idea what happened to Umawai and her daughter. For all they knew, they were probably dead. Life moved on for them, and Umawai's story became a thing of once upon a time. But Ezebilo, he knew what had happened. In fact, the memories haunted him day and night. He soon became ill, an illness that had no name and no cure. In fact, his family carried him around until no one agreed to come near him anymore, for his body had started to decay. He smelled like a corpse, yet he was still alive, still breathing. The villagers knew that this was no ordinary sickness. This was a curse. It had to be. And it only meant that he had done something abominable. No one dared to even come close to his home. The smell around there was horrible. Just like Ulimma said to him, he begged for death, and death refused to take him. And when it finally did take him, no one knew. And so he was not even buried. Ezebilo died a very shameful and painful deaths. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you are new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button, and to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you know someone who would enjoy a story like this, do not hesitate to share. Don't forget to leave a comment down below. I'll take my leave now, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.